President Trump claiming victory after the release of the Mueller report.
I'm having a good day, too. It was called No Collusion, No Obstruction. I'm having a good day. There never was, by the way, and there never will be. And we do have to get to the bottom of these things. I say it in front of my friends, this should never happen to another president again. This hoax, this should never happen to another president again.
Trump's reaction coming after AG William Barr's news conference, where he once again cleared the president and confirmed there was no collusion and no obstruction.
So that's the bottom line. The special counsel confirmed that the Russian government sponsored efforts to illegally interfere with the 2016 presidential election, but did not find that the Trump campaign or other Americans colluded in those efforts.
Now the focus has turned to obstruction. Some Democrats are insisting that President Trump broke the law, but AG Barr says that's not true.
The report recounts 10 episodes involving the president and discusses potential legal theories for connecting those activities to the elements of an obstruction offense. The Deputy Attorney General and I concluded that the evidence developed by the special counsel is not sufficient to establish that the president committed an obstruction of justice offense. Although the Deputy Attorney General and I disagreed with some of the special counsel's legal theories and felt that some of the episodes examined did not amount to obstruction as a matter of law.
For more on what's inside the Mueller report, let's go to Ed Henry. Ed.
Good to see you guys. Shortly after this report was released, Rudy Giuliani texted me this was, quote unquote, a knockout blow for the president when it comes to his critics. That after 22 months and $25 million. The story did not really change much today. Attorney General William Barr made it clear yet again, just as he did in his letter to Congress last month, that the special counsel found no collusion by any Americans with Russia, including Trump aides. Barr specifically declaring, while yes, Russia tried to interfere in the last election, they did not get help from candidate Trump or his aides. That despite Congressman Adam Schiff, other Democrats repeatedly claiming they had evidence of collusion. Robert Mueller never found it, despite thousands of subpoenas, hundreds of warrants, witness interviews, and the rest. Despite Democrats and various pundits repeatedly hinting Donald Trump Jr. was going to be indicted over that June 2016 Trump Tower meeting, the bottom line from the Mueller report is it was not criminal. That is part of Volume 2 of the Mueller report, which is more damaging to the president because the special counsel details 10 instances where the president acted in a way that raised questions, at least, about obstruction of justice. Mueller declaring in his report, quote, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. Bottom line, this has shifted now from a legal fight to a political fight. Schiff declaring to reporters a few moments ago, this is not game over for his investigating of the president, while Giuliani seems delighted about more investigations, which he sees as partisan. Giuliani just texted me again a few minutes ago saying, quote, the commentariat is reeling. Guys?
Thank you, Ed Henry. All right, so been going through this whole report big time today. Feel how, listen to this, ready? That's how big it is. And I have it color-coded, too. And we're going to refer to those color codes later, Marie.
Great. I can't wait.
But, Dan, I wanted to get to you first. I know you've been following this story very closely. The way I see it is the president for 2 years has been falsely accused of being a traitor.
Yep.
Mueller has now concluded the president is not a traitor. And the Democrats, instead of being happy that the president of the United States is not a traitor, they're angry about the way the president fought back against the false allegations that he was a traitor.
Right. They're angry that the president was angry that he was falsely accused of selling out the United States. Isn't this incredible?
Yes.
Let's be clear on this. There was never evidence of collusion, ever. And this report is a disgrace. Whoever wrote this report, Mueller, Weissman, and his team of Democrats, framed it in such a way to leave out very significant facts. One, there's no evidence of collusion in there because they couldn't fabricate it. But when I took 2 notes on this. When you go to the Papadopoulos section, well, there's a lot. I'm talking about on this alone. Okay. On the Papadopoulos section, they leave out the fact that Joseph Mifsud, the guy who allegedly tells them about the Russian emails, had deep connections to Western intelligence, too. Go look it up on Google. His pictures are out there with UK intelligence people. Second, on the Trump Tower meeting, they strategically leave out that the Russian lawyer that shows up was working with the same company working for Hillary Clinton. Kind of relevant, right, to the story? But no, let's leave that out. It's a disgrace. This obstruction thing is a joke. The president is fully vindicated. Oh, any rational person reading that knows it.
Yeah, and if you listen to Rudy Giuliani, who said on our air earlier that the Russian lawyer met with Fusion GPS, the dossier authors, the day before the Trump Tower meeting, the day of, and the day after. Must have been a coincidence. All right, Greg, you've been going through the report all day, I know.
No.
What are your top-line conclusions?
I haven't read it, and you know what? I'm never going to read it. I swear I'm never going to read it because this is not news to me. If you were conscious on March 24th, you already knew it. That was called a spoiler alert when you were told there was no collusion and no obstruction. So this is the second time around for me, and it feels pretty good. It's like, you know, around Christmas time, they play Die Hard, and you love Die Hard. The ending is great, and the ending's always the same. You know, John McClane wins, Hans Gruber dies, okay? Now, this is the difference between America and the rest of the media. America watches Die Hard and knows the ending and enjoys it. The media watches Die Hard and thinks the ending's going to change. That somehow Hans Gruber is not going to die and John McClane is going to be arrested. So in 3 weeks now, they've watched Die Hard twice and they've had their hearts broken. I love this. You know, CNN's ratings are very low right now, but the ratings they have, I believe, are based on comic relief. I think that people are going there and watching it just for the hilarity. I want to address the one thing, what's his name? Ed Henry?
Yeah.
Is that his name? Where does he work?
He's one of ours.
Oh, great. Nice guy. He ran through the laundry list fallacy. He mentioned 10 instances that raise questions. Okay? You take each instance on its own, it doesn't raise anything. It says there's nothing there. So instead, you step back and you go, but there are 10. But if there are 10 zeros, 10 times 0 is still zero. So that's called the laundry list fallacy, that if you don't have a strong argument, you have 10 small arguments that you add up, and you end up with this obsessive fascination in which they're not going to go through the report and look for little zeros. There's going to be an entire industry devoted to solving Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster.
That was also your point during the Kavanaugh hearings, that if you just keep throwing more and more allegations at him, it just builds up into something more different. Now, the Hans Gruber of the table. I'm just kidding.
Alan Rickman was a great actor.
Rickman was a great actor. How do you see this report?
On obstruction, Mueller makes clear in the text of the report that they are not saying no obstruction. He says that in plain language. We are unable to reach the judgment that the president did not commit obstruction of justice.
Right. He just didn't charge him with obstruction.
Those are two very different things, Jesse, and he outlines legally why he could not, under the existing Justice Department guidelines, charge the president. He outlines a case for obstruction and then in plain text says it's up to the Congress to decide if this obstruction of justice, which, by the way, has been part of 2 articles of impeachment for Nixon and Clinton, obstruction of justice, if this rises to the level.
He actually said if Congress wants to do its own investigation, they are able to find and charge
apply
the president with obstruction
laws to the
under
president's
the
corrupt
hearings.
exercise. He says that very clearly.
But he doesn't say this was the product of, here you go, Congress, take it where I left it. He said if they want to do their own investigation, they can find it too.
That's not actually what he said. But he made very clear.
If you read it closely, that's what he said.
This highlighting here is pretty close reading. But he said very clearly, I am not saying the president did not commit obstruction of justice. He also does not say there's no collusion. He says there's no conspiracy or coordination that rose to the level of criminal standards. So he is not, and then he outlines very clearly multiple contacts between the Trump administration and Russians.
Yeah, but is that illegal?
Is that illegal? My final point on that, to answer Dan's question, I think we should have higher standards for our president than whether things are illegal. I read this and thought it may not be illegal. I find it abhorrent. I find it unethical. I think it's nothing that any other Democratic or Republican
Should he have fewer rights than you? Should he have fewer rights than you?
I don't think that any other presidential campaign, Democratic or Republican, would ever engage in this kind of behavior. And I don't want my president to
Should he have less rights? I mean, he released that. I wouldn't have released it.
I'm just trying to be clear. The meeting with Russians is illegal now, or is unethical?
Trying to accept help to influence an election.
Hillary did?
Hillary actually
did accept help.
Okay, let's go, Dana. Marie apparently is a collusion truther who's still hanging on to that.
No, I just think we need to read the actual report.
What do you think this is? It's all been read. Took me just 45 minutes.
It's amazing, speed reader.
Yeah, what does the red flag stand for?
That is redacted information from grand jury testimony.
Put him to the test.
There was just a one little nugget that I've been curious about. And you find out that there's actually nothing there. So go way back with me, back in time, to the 2016 RNC convention. And the language of the platform gets changed on Ukraine.
Right.
That we were going to support with arms, and then it gets watered down. And everyone's like, how did that happen? I'm like, I actually wanted to know, how did that happen? And I thought maybe like Manafort's got a little side deal going on. Maybe. Turns out, no. It's like a young staff, I shouldn't say young, I don't know how old he is. But
Junior.
like a not important level staffer that thought they heard the president at some point think that maybe he would rather do it this way, and so he gets it changed. But for almost 3 years, there has been this suspicion out there that there was a change in the RNC platform based on some sort of nefarious thing in regards to Russia.
No, I want the name of that staffer.
It's in the report, actually.
Okay,
probably
I
read it.
missed that part.